Well, welcome back to another podcast. I'm Matthew Peters, and I'm here with
Eli.
Eli, thanks so much for joining us again. Today, this is the Bridgepoint Podcast, and we're glad that you've tuned in because we're going to be talking about the Goliaths in our lives, the Goliaths that we've seen God take down in ways that are just completely inexplicable other than his power working through us, and also the Goliaths that we are afraid to face. But if we listen to what God would have to say and we listen to his spirit and our community, we would know that actually he's given us the ability. So we hope you're encouraged by that. Write down in the comments, if you'd like, what are your Goliaths? What are the ones that you're afraid to face? Or what are the Goliaths that you have faced? Give us a like, give us a thumbs up if you like this, and also share. Please share. So we're glad that you're here with today. And Eli, thanks for joining us again. It's great to have you back, man.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
I know.
Yeah.
So how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Cool.
Doing good. Yeah.
And this was your idea to talk about the Goliaths, as I recall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So tell me what's behind that. What are some of the things that God's been doing in your life, or the things that you're wrestling through that you thought of the subject of let's talk about Goliaths in our lives?
Well, I think naturally human beings always want to tackle the easy things and leave the hard stuff towards the end. And it's
right.
Right. I've been kind of, I did a lot of Celebrate Recovery back in the day.
Yes.
And do you know about moral inventory, stuff like that?
Yeah. Go ahead and explain it to us, though.
It's just when you delve into the deepest, darkest pits of your soul. And I don't want to say my soul's dark, but
but all of us have those dark places, dude.
And
let's just be real about it, right?
They talk about traumatic experiences or kind of like a lightning bolt that happens in your life, and when it happens, mentally you stay that age, that time for the rest of your life until you're healed from it.
Totally true.
So
completely true, man.
So if something happened to you when you're 6, you're going to react to it the same way that you did when you were 6 years old.
Dude, people don't believe that.
It's so true,
and it is totally true.
Yeah. And I find myself, in certain areas of my life, I still may act like that 12-year-old or 13-year-old.
Wow.
And it's there are some things way down there that I just have yet to scrape out. I've just been getting rid of all the easy ones that are, super light to lift, but it's kind of now I'm doing a lot of strength training, mentally trying to handle the heavier stuff.
And you're getting married, so I'll bet you're motivated. Is
that
part
absolutely.
of it?
You don't want to carry that kind of stuff in. You do in a sense. It's good to be open and talk about it,
right?
But you don't want to. I guess if you're living in the past when you're getting married, that's just going to cause future problems.
Yeah, that speaks volumes for itself. Yeah, right, absolutely. Fascinating. I'd like to go back to the moral inventory.
Yeah.
And, I have seen in my own life, and I've also seen in the lives of people that I care for as a pastor, they're just totally locked into that area until God releases them.
Yep.
And people have wrongly, that might be too strong. People have assessed others and they say that person's immature,
right? Or
they say there's something wrong with that person, and they're not very gracious with them. But then when you go through an inventory and you find out that when a person was 6 years old they were abused,
right?
Or when you find out when they were 2.
Well, I feel like that's just the factory default of somebody that just judges before they actually talk to a person, which I've been at fault many times.
Yeah,
for.
I think that not only are they doing that, but they're also profoundly unaware or even willfully unaware of how people work. So
how many people do you know say, I'm going through my moral inventory right now?
Right.
Well,
that's language of the recovery community.
Right.
And I know a little bit about that, having had done some recovery myself, and having a lot of dear friends such as you who've been through that as well. And so this is the language that we use when we talk to each other about how we want to grow spiritually.
Right.
But that's great that you brought that up. I'm glad that you spoke about that. And I think a lot of people need to see that because, just as a brief aside before we get into more of the Goliath type things, people, they rush to make assessments on others rather than to rush to care for them. So I'll give you an example.
Well, it's easier to do it that way.
If you got a 50-year-old man, okay, who throws a temper tantrum like a 2-year-old, the better question isn't, what's wrong with you? Grow up. The better question is, what happened to you that you're acting like that? Because that's not normal. That's not how grown men act. And so that belies not necessarily an immaturity, but an inability to get to a place because they're locked up somewhere.
Yep.
And that's and why we as Christians claim that we follow Jesus, who cared for everyone exactly where they were. He didn't throw stones at the adulterous woman. He didn't get all over the case of the blind man like he was a sinner. He didn't even bother the paralytic whose friends were the ones who had the faith to drop him. He just says, your sins are forgiven.
Right.
Like, what in the world? Why do we not? Okay, sorry, I'm going off here, but like, I feel very passionate about this, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. So let's go back to the thing. So you're taking a moral inventory. You're finding some of the things that are still down there that you'd like to see resolved, and you encounter Goliath.
Yeah, he's a big one too.
Okay, what are you encountering?
I think, like, you know, I look back at, you know, I guess we can call it my temper tantrums, because I don't have a better word for it. I mean, everybody gets frustrated about things. And it's, you know, it's different severity for each person. Somebody might not look at it the same as I do. But, you know, I've always struggled with self-image in a physical way. I've never really liked how I looked. I mean, I was 280 pounds and I went down to 152 pounds, and I still wasn't happy with myself.
152 was probably a little skinny for you?
Yeah.
Too much though, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I had like 3.2% body fat. It was ridiculous.
That's too low.
Yeah.
And you also have had tremendous health problems on top of that, which has been just
so, you know, from that, getting super chunky again, quitting smoking, having a lot of health issues, you know, I've gained a lot of weight back. And
a lot of that is medication based, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to put the blame on that. I mean, it's me eating McDonald's and Wendy's too.
But it makes it harder.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
My Goliath is that. It's the I am never satisfied. I'm never content, I think. I don't think it's self-image. I can go even deeper and say it's just contentedness with just anything. You know, my fiance, like, she was yelling at me the other day because, like, I work at a car dealership.
Okay.
So
hence the Nissan.
Yeah.
Right.
But I have the itch all the time because it's like, you know, I have the most new truck on the market right now.
It's a great truck, by the way.
And I was super blessed to have it.
It's awesome. I love it.
But in my head, I want a bigger truck.
Really?
Why? And to me, like, when I step away from my first person perspective of my life, it makes absolutely no sense. But when I jump back into it, it makes all the sense in the world.
And you're not able to figure that thing out.
Yeah.
And then resolve that so you feel like you have a more healthy psychology.
Right. And I think ever since when I was a kid, I got bullied a lot, you know, just for looking like a dork and, you know, whatever. I mean, high school, I was the fat kid. You know, I was skinny a little bit in high school too. I mean, I was just all over the place. You know, I was the fat guy in my friends group, and, you know, I just like, I never felt like I was accepted in a way. I guess I never really accepted myself either. Yeah. And, you know, my fiance kind of pointed out to me, like, hey, you know, before you can love anything or be content, you have to love yourself too.
That is so true.
Yeah. She's a smart one, as you can see.
It's so true.
For me,
you know, a lot of people do like really weird stuff with that. Yeah. Either they say, "Oh no, you shouldn't love yourself. All your life is about worshiping God and serving others. Stop it." Right. And then people do on the other side. They're like, "Oh, it's all about me," and then they use this as like a license to just be kind of a selfish, self-centered jerk. You know what I mean? No, Jesus says, "Love your neighbor as
you love yourself."
And if you hate yourself, and you're not seeing yourself the way God sees you,
and then
how can you give to another person
and
love?
So my moral inventory of that is, you know, I've started to notice a lot of people are saying, like, hey, I mean, like, why are you being so mean? You know, whatever. And it's like, I think my inward feelings are affecting how I outwardly present myself to people.
Sure.
In a way. So it's like, I don't mean to come off mean to them. I don't mean to come off whatever, but my inner anger projects towards them, towards myself. And I mean, and it's such a crazy thing to just, like, no matter what, not be, content with yourself. Like I literally work out 4 days a week. I power lift and everything. I've gotten so much healthier. I've eaten clean for 2 months. So it felt really good.
Awesome,
Still ain't enough. Still, I'm picking myself apart. And
yeah,
it's
but
just
it takes a long time.
I know.
I mean, people don't understand how long it takes. Yeah. Remember, I did this P90X routine, and it took me every bit of the 90 days before I was fit. And I was fit going into it. Yeah. Okay? So I think
it just physically, I've just been like this. It's never been this. So I think mentally I got used to it. So I learned to think like this instead of this. For me, it was like how do people that are overweight, such as myself, how are they happy?
Maybe they're not.
I don't know. But, why can't I feel good about myself? Today, the reason I'm wearing this shirt?
Yeah.
Because I absolutely hate what it looks like on me.
Oh, come on. We're on video.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Explain.
So I'm wearing it because I've always hated how it looks on me.
You look fine.
Thank you.
I mean, I think you look great.
I told myself today, I was like, hey, doesn't matter. This is the one shirt that you hate wearing to work because it makes you look tubby to yourself.
So you're pushing through that. Is that what you're doing? Yep. So can I tell you?
So I am being the David to my Goliath, and just learning that Goliath isn't as really big as you make it out to be.
Yeah. So let's go back and remember the story of David and Goliath.
Right.
Okay. So in the scriptures, in 1 Samuel, you have, and you can find this in the Bible, you have this 9-foot giant who comes out and he starts cursing God and he curses the armies of Israel. Mm-hmm. And he basically says, just come here, send somebody out so I can just kick their butt. Yeah. And this is the ancient Near Eastern contest of champions. So they send one guy on behalf of everyone, and whoever wins that battle,
that's brave.
Then that's the outcome for everybody. Okay,
right.
Contest of champions, and no one wants to do it. Everyone's like, "This is impossible. This guy's going to squash us like a bug." And little David, he comes along, and he's like ticked, and he says, "I'm gonna fight this guy." And they try to give him all this armor and all this stuff, and he's like, "No, that's not for me." And he says, well, what do I have for this guy? He picks up 5 smooth stones. He puts them in his sling. Now, if you know about the Middle Eastern kids, they use these slings. They are like pinpoint accuracy. He can put that.
I've tried that as a kid, and I don't understand how they do that.
But they do.
Yeah. And it's not only not with targets, but they literally
it's practice, man.
It's ridiculous.
They're practiced. They know what they're doing. And it doesn't seem like it's enough, right? What's one little kid and 5 little sling stones going to do to a 9-foot giant? The guy's wearing armor and all this stuff, right? And David basically trusts God. He trusts God. He says, it's not going to be me. It's going to be the Lord that's going to do it through me. But to be sure, David's skill set was used. And he goes out there, he shoots the stone, and it sinks into the guy's forehead and kills him. Mm-hmm. And then he takes Goliath's own sword and chops his head off. Booyah. Right? So this is the story.
Metal.
Right. Right? Enter. So the story is a rich reminder that God's power can operate through our smallest skill set.
Right.
And that God can do things far more than we ever asked or imagined. So your thing is body image. Mine has always been emotions and how I feel inside. So I have always struggled when people have done things that are bad to me. Mm. And I have gone through the process of forgiveness. I know what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is when you take the pain that someone has done and you release them from it and you don't make them pay for it. You forgive them and let them go. All right? Yeah. And that is forgiveness. But the problem is that oftentimes there's damage that's done to a person, like we talked about, that locks you in at a particular age group, right? Or there's ongoing impact, okay? So, for example, if someone came and burnt my house down, okay, every day that I'm experiencing having to live in a hotel or having to go through paperwork or the pain of lost possessions that are special to me, do you know what I mean? All the photographs, all the belongings that are of treasure. that's a pain that absolutely acts like an ocean, just waves of pain. They just come breaking in and breaking in. And people say, oh, you didn't forgive. Do you know what I mean? And there are certain people that don't understand that forgiveness and pain do go together, right? But they can be separate. And you can forgive someone, but you can still have pain over the issue. So I had tons of pain over the issue. Now, what was interesting...
Right. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that just because you say sorry to someone doesn't mean that it just stops affecting them.
Right.
Know? And it's like I forgive you, but you still pierced my heart. I mean, that's not something that's just like,
but I think for
now.
me,
right.
like if I were to be really brutally try to be honest and take an inventory, I was trying to forgive people, but I was holding on to that pain and I wasn't going to let it go. And it was causing people to look at me and say, you're immature. And this is very, very bad for a person in a leadership position because that's not acceptable. It tarnishes your reputation. It diminishes trust. You know, there's so many things, right? So I recently went on this retreat, and at the retreat, it was called the Great Banquet. Okay, and I went to the Indiana Dunes Great Banquet. And at the banquet, they provided this environment for us of total love and safety.
Where's my invite?
Dude, I'll send you this fall. You want to go? I'll send you.
As long as there's food.
Yeah. Oh, the food was amazing. Dude, they fed us steak.
Oh, man.
I couldn't believe it.
What kind of steak, though?
Good steak.
Like,
it was salmon and steak and roast potatoes. It was gourmet, man.
Yep, send the invite.
And there was like hundreds and hundreds of pounds of bacon. You could eat as much bacon as you wanted.
Interesting.
It was biscuits and gravy for breakfast.
I was sold that steak,
bacon,
but you said bacon,
eggs, fresh fruit.
Currently frothing at the mouth.
Oh, it's so good. So the food was amazing, and all these people cared for us. But like, what happened to me there was they told us stories of what Jesus can do for people in the Bible. And to me, my emotional pain was like a Goliath that everyone was afraid of, and that he was going to destroy me and control me.
Yep. And
I even had people repeatedly say to me, man, you got to let it go, man. You got to let it go. And I tried and I couldn't. I really couldn't.
That whole statement right there just annoys me. Just let it go. You got to let it go.
Well, I think
you got to stop being anxious. You just got to let it go. You got to stop being emotional about it.
I think there are well-meaning people that would like to see me free.
Sure.
And there are also people that are profoundly ignorant and they just don't want to deal with it.
Right.
So they just want you to, let it go.
It's like a Band-Aid.
Yeah, just come on, stop.
Yeah.
You know, no.
Throw some Neosporin on it,
right,
go back outside.
Move along. So what happened to me is I got this space in my life where I went away for 3 days and I got to be able to have uninterrupted alone time with God, which, by the way, I'm not good at. Like, I'm a people person. I like activity. I like talking. I'm an extrovert, right?
Sounds kind of awkward a little bit.
You would have thought so, right? No.
Interesting.
It wasn't like hours and hours and hours. It was just well thought out. People cared for you. They loved you. They gave you a few minutes space to think and reflect. And I'm telling you, God came in and he said, give me your pain and I will take it from you. And I will defeat this Goliath in you if you will receive it. And bro, it happened. And I don't know. I'm not here to give people a laundry list or a cookbook for how to make your soul better. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to say is that there are things in our lives that we think are so big and that they're 9 feet tall and we're just a little old kid and all we got is stones and there's nothing we can do about it. And the fact is that God comes in and says, by the power of his Spirit, because of Jesus, I can heal you. And if you give that to him at the deepest level, he will take it away. And for me, it wasn't a one-time deal. It was a process. But this past few days has been the completion of a process of letting it go. And bro, I'm healed.
I think if my shirt could be green right now, it would be.
Are you jealous?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm glad that you said that, because I have been very jealous of I talked to a guy, and he said that he never wanted to drink again when God finally broke through.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other guys that said, I don't ever want heroin again for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Right? And I say, Lord, what's wrong with me that I'm so jealous of them, that I'm still struggling with it? And it was revealed to me that what is going on there is there's still pain, and there's still damage, and there's still responses that are unhealthy left in our souls. And guess what? God cares about that too.
Yeah.
And I am here for you. I mean, offline we could talk about this, but I am firmly convinced, more than I've ever been, that Jesus defeats the Goliaths in our lives. He can take those on. And it may be a process, it may be a one-time thing, but it can and will happen. And what we need is to be surrounded by the Spirit of God and by His people, and it will happen. It will happen.
I'm going to make a big circle here, but it'll make sense in about 2 minutes.
For it. Do it.
Now, I know there's some people out there that feel, as I just said, my shirt could be green right now, because there's been many times that I've prayed, God, why do I feel this way about myself? Why, just being blunt, why do I hate myself? Right. I give you this pain. I give you this anger that I have. I don't know what to do with it. God, do what you will.
Right.
Nothing. And it makes me sick to my stomach thinking about it, because there's been nights where I really needed it and I felt nothing. And that's fine. I think there's two kinds of people. Initially, as a human being, you have, people like you, nothing wrong with you. You're the universe might look at you differently, and God might just answer you. But for me, it's almost like I needed the fight to know that I was victorious, if that makes sense.
Yeah, dude, that's cool.
So when I quit smoking, by the way, I've quit smoking 5 times. Okay. I used the Chantix, I used Wellbutrin, I've used the patches, I've used the vapes, I've done everything. Nicotine gum, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
None of them worked.
No, they don't work.
And they don't work.
I'm not saying they don't work for everybody.
They didn't work
for me either. So you were Wonder Twins active.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was a battle. And for some reason I get right down. I'd fight off. If it was a war, I'd fight off everybody, but that final boss, which was that last cigarette or whatever, couldn't beat it. It was the worst.
Yep.
And I gave up. But I think, so the day that I quit smoking, I was in the car with my fiance. We were driving back from, I think it was TJ Maxx.
Yeah.
And I was so nicotine sick because, if for anybody who knows Juuls out there, I was doing 4 pods a day.
Which is you were like poisoning yourself. Man.
Yeah, I had nicotine poisoning. It was horrible. I had to go to the hospital and everything.
Fun fact: nicotine is a poison.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But I felt so sick, and I just because of whatever was just building up inside of me, I needed to kind of push it down, and the only thing that helped that was nicotine, because I'm just going through so much crap and everything. It was horrible.
Well, you know what a nicotine does, right? Nicotine does what caffeine or cocaine or any other kind of speed or stimulant will do for you. Yeah. It excites your brain and it changes your brain chemistry, so you feel a little bit better about that.
I was spending $20 a day on nicotine.
That's so expensive.
If you think for any smoker, that's 4 packs of cigarettes.
That's a big bill.
Yeah, wow. And I didn't have a job that would cover that kind of stuff, so I had to rely off of mom and dad to give me money. It was ridiculous.
Oh no!
But I was in the car with my fiance a couple months after, and we're driving back. We got some clothes, whatever, just hanging out, and I was just so sick of it. I was tired of feeling like that. I was tired of feeling sick and miserable, and I said, God, my name, I know you know me. My name is Elijah Vanderveer.
Yeah.
And today, I ask you, and I promise to you that I will never pick up nicotine again, as long as I have your help.
Wow.
Never touch it again.
Dude, that's so awesome.
That was a year ago. Actually, over a year ago.
Wow. Yeah,
But-
so the story
the-
is you tried 4 times. That was the 5th time. It took the 5th time when you
Yeah.
asked the Lord's help.
And it didn't even work then. I don't even consider a victory there.
Okay.
That's the part that it's right before the fight you get confident.
Yeah.
But when you're actually in the fight, that's where it counts the most. And
Yeah.
for about 4 months, I pretty much was dead, and I felt horrible, cold turkeying, and I'm going off of pretty much 4 packs of cigarettes a day, nicotine-wise.
Oh, you were hurting puppy, man.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
And I was sick, dry heaving on a couch, cold sweats, the whole 9 yards. It was terrible. I wasn't working. I couldn't work. Nobody knows I didn't have a job, but I didn't have a job. I couldn't work. I had to quit.
Wow.
It was horrible. On top of that, I was dealing with a really bad breakup, and I had a lot of problems. And that fight, that 5 months of Jillian taking care of me, that 5 months of the brutal torture that I endured just to sit here and talk about it today is why I still don't smoke, because I overcame that.
Yeah, and you don't need to go through that again. You don't want that.
No. And
right.
That's why I don't pick up a cigarette. That's why I don't think about it. Every now and then, a cigarette's nice, but I'm never going to pick it up. It's and I think for me to overcome that Goliath, I had to fight him.
Yeah.
And that Goliath at that time was nicotine. This Goliath is, I think God wants me to fight.
Your self-image, Goliath?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I the same thing, the 4 times that I quit smoking before, I never learned the lesson.
Right.
Because I didn't have to fight. I didn't know the pain behind why I was fighting.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it at that time.
So the real question is, this is not intended to be like counseling hour, okay? But at least the thing that comes to my mind is, how do you think God sees you? And don't answer the question the way you're supposed to answer the question. Answer the question what you actually think God thinks when he looks at you.
Sad. Truthfully. Yeah. I want to say he probably sees the total opposite of what I see, which is so corny to me.
Yeah, and that's why I said let's not go there. Do you know what my emotional problem was? My emotional problem is that I didn't think God cared.
Right.
And I knew all the right theology, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I could exegete the passage in Greek or Hebrew, depending upon whether it's the Old or New Testament. I knew what the Bible taught about what God says about our emotions and what God says about how he cares for us. And I was like, no, God, you want to screw me over because I've been hurt so badly. And I call this operational theology. So what operational theology is what you're actually doing in the deepest place of your soul with what you believe. So you don't think that God looks at you positively. You think he thinks he's sad when he looks at you, right? And I didn't think that God wanted to heal me. I just think God wanted to allow hurt in my life and that I just had to deal with that. And so it caused me to, at a very subtle but very sneaky level, to be not even realizing it, but distrusting God, not actually seeing God for who he was.
Sure.
So I know a guy who's dealing with a broken marriage, okay? And he wants to reconcile his relationship. So he has spent decades, okay? Do you hear that? Decades, not getting along with his wife.
I've only been alive for 2 of them.
Right.
Plus
so
5.
This is deep stuff, okay?
Jeez.
And he is now going to her and he is saying to her, I love you. I want to connect with you. Mm-hmm. And you know what she's saying to him? I don't think so. That's not the guy that I know. Mm. And he's saying positive things to her, right? Like she's his treasure. She's his gift of God to him. And she's like, do you know what she said? Do you know what I hear when you say that I'm God's gift to you? I hear you say that I'm a piece of S-H-T. Mm-hmm. And he's like, piece of crap, whatever. I don't know what I want to say in this program that claims to follow Jesus, right? But that's what she actually said. And we talked about this. Mm. And what that is is that's pattern pain deep in our hearts that we need to let go. Now, here's the truth. The truth is this guy actually doesn't want to treat her like dirt. This guy actually does want to love her now. He's had a change of heart.
Yeah.
He's met the living God. And he's going, what did I do to my wife? Yep. I've not loved her. And now he wants to love her. And you know what? She's like, no, dude. Like, and even when he says something about what he's really feeling about her, she cannot take it. Yep. There's a wall put up. And so each one of us has a wall, or that's actually becomes the Goliath. Yep. That we don't believe that. And I believe that there are a handful of things that need to happen for every human being to be able to defeat these kind of emotional or psychological, spiritual Goliaths. Okay? The first thing that needs to happen is they need to be surrounded by people that actually love them. So if there's a person who actually agrees with your negative view of yourself, then that person has to go. Okay? The second thing is that they need to be repeatedly brought into a safe place where they can interface with God and hear from God. Mm-hmm. And if they don't get that, then it's never going to happen, right? And the final thing that needs to happen is they need to be able to be given an opportunity to respond to the truth. And to just say to someone flippantly, like, no, God doesn't look at you that way. That does not work, man. That does not work.
Yeah, to be honest, if you would have responded with that, I probably would have just ignored it.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. Why? Because at the very deepest place.
There's a wall for sure.
So can we be goofy for just a second? Okay. I got a friend.
Do you know who you're talking to?
Yeah, all right. But I need to ask for permission. He's a flat earther.
No, I'm just playing.
Okay. He really believes that every photograph that you see on NASA's webpage, every video that you've ever seen from outer space, everything that you've ever seen as legitimate evidence is all made up by NASA to fool us into thinking that there is no God. Right?
I was just going to say I've never been to space, so I can't exactly prove anything, but I mean, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
And I've tried to help him see that the things that he is reading in the Bible woodenly do not actually teach that the earth is flat, and that there's no contradiction between a non-flat earth and the existence of God. Mm-hmm. And he can't hear it.
Well,
he cannot hear it. And I don't know what to do other than be patient with him and try to work with him and try to encourage him, because that is like when a person is at that level, then logic isn't the thing that works. You have to be able to care for that person, and that's the only thing that's going to work. That might not be the best illustration, because it's actually quite complex why someone would believe in that, and I think they're truly been sort of brainwashed, if you will, or chosen that pathway. But yeah, so what are some we've seen Goliaths where we've been able to see God have a huge victory, but we've also seen Goliaths where we've not really trusted in that. So we have to ask ourselves the question, is it really true that my emotions have control over me and that God wants to hurt me? Is it really true that when God looks at you, he's sad?
Not necessarily, no.
No.
And like I said, it could be, to reiterate what I said earlier, it could be just an inward feeling that I'm projecting outwardly. And I might think that just like you think of me, I might think, or I might think God thinks the same about me.
Yeah, we so often believe in lies, though.
Sure. Yeah.
And they're not helpful for us. But boy, do we believe in them. Boy, do we believe in them. And if David had believed, that God wouldn't help him defeat Goliath, there would be no David and Goliath. Goliath would have won. David, I don't know if that would have kept him from being king, but that was indicative of his character. That's why God raised him up. God saw his heart. You know?
You know, I find it interesting just kind of going on like a scientific level of just that weapon alone.
Yeah.
I kind of read a couple articles on it because I was curious, like, you know, can that actually happen? I mean, how often do you see a guy that's 8 feet tall?
I've never 9 feet tall.
9 feet tall. But, you know, I think regardless of the story, so the article says the impact of those rocks once it leaves, I can't remember the actual name of it.
The sling?
The sling.
Yeah.
We'll call it a sling. When it makes impact, it's equivalent to 110 mile an hour fastball making impact on a tree. Think about that for a second. So, I mean, sure, Goliath is big, but I don't know anybody that can take a 110 mile an hour fastball to the head. You know, and he must have been pretty accurate
with a rock.
With a rock. So
yeah, not just a baseball, a rock.
A rock, yeah. I mean, I guess in saying that, having that kind of perspective on it kind of changes how Goliath looks a little bit. He's not so scary anymore. You know, for me, it's like, all right, I know I can lose weight, and I know how to gain weight too because I like food.
Boy, don't we all?
And if I look at how I was talking about this from that third person perspective rather than first person, I have more control over the situation than I think I do. I have the ability to lose all this weight, and I have the ability to do whatever I need to my body to make sure that I'm healthy. But I never looked at it in that perspective. I've always looked at it like, oh, my body's out of control. I can't control anything. I can't control how I eat.
See, there's the misconception.
Right.
There's the lie, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't want to be harsh, right?
No,
but
it's
like,
true.
you know, I look at you and I'm like, I have quit smoking too, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I have quit drinking, okay? And I know how hard that is, and God helped me do that, but I received his help and I did it.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, and I really resonated with where you were talking about all that hard work. Yeah. Man, oh man, it was every single day. I said, I don't need a cigarette. I am okay. I feel like crap, but I'm okay. No, I will not go back to that. Right? So my point is that we believe things about ourselves that are not true.
Yeah.
Right? And yet there is ample evidence in our lives from things that we've seen or experienced personally, right, to tell us that we should know that we can do this. Yeah. It may be way harder than we wanted it to be, but we can do this. So David, he steps up and he does what he can do in God's power to be able to sling that stone, and he kills the Goliath. Mm-hmm. So what is your sling? What is your stone? What is the truth that you need? And I needed the deep truth for me that God is actually not out to hurt me. He's out to heal me. And when I finally accepted that truth, he reached in and he took all that pain away. And then I was like happy as a clam. I have not been so happy in years. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm so happy. There's such a huge victory. And it was precisely at the point where I stopped believing a lie and I started embracing the truth. And I would say that to you and to anyone who's listening, I'm not trying to make this just about you, but I think your vulnerability and transparency is brilliant because you're taking a real good look at yourself and you're digging down and you're saying, through your inventory, through your analysis, you're saying, what is actually going on here?
First step in solving a problem is realizing there is one.
Wow. Wow.
Secondly,
if you don't know there's a problem, how can you solve it? Wow.
So, did I ever tell you what my life motto is?
No, tell me.
So, it kind of gave me a sword that day, and it's the most corny way. I feel like, you know, I was kind of going through a little bit of a dark period, and I was praying to God a lot, and I didn't feel like I heard anything from him.
Yeah.
I can't remember what TV show I was watching, but it was the most profound thing I've ever seen on TV, and I've ever heard it. And like, I was blocking out the whole TV. I was just kind of space cadet the whole time. Mm-hmm. Wasn't really paying attention. Horrible ADHD. I can't watch TV. It's bad. But for some reason, my ears and my brain clicked into this moment, and I don't know. For some reason, I live by this, and it's 100% true. the guy was he was giving a speech to everybody, and he said, "Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional."
Oh, you talk about this all the time. Okay, sure.
And that right there was the key. That was my sling. I know that this is going to hurt. But, okay. So what?
Yeah, it's like it's what you do with.
Yeah.
And it reminds me, I think we've talked about this before, but, Paul and Silas went to Philippi and they were beaten and thrown into the jail.
Yep.
And instead of letting that pain and, the Bible does talk about pain and suffering, right? But letting that suffering become something that dominates them and that controls them.
Yep.
Nope. They praised God. And I had this.
Like you were talking about the ladies I think you mentioned in Auschwitz with the lice, and they put them into
Corrie ten Boom.
Like if you think about that situation, it is the most horrible of horrible.
That was awful.
But regardless of the situation that they were in, they chose not to suffer.
Yeah.
It hurt.
I just want to clarify for people because I think I understand what you mean. So suffering seems to imply that to saying you're not going to suffer seems to imply that nothing bad will ever happen to you.
No.
But this guy is basically saying it's what you do with that pain.
Exactly.
The pain is inevitable.
Yes.
Suffering is optional.
Yes.
In other words, are you going to allow that to control you and
Yes.
shape you and dominate you and destroy you? Who's going to win? You
Yeah.
or the pain? Right?
If you skateboard for the first time and you fall on your knee and you scrape it, are you done? Like it's going to happen again.
It will happen again.
Yeah.
You're never going to.
But I remember I used to skateboard. I don't anymore. But I was a couple of years ago. I was teaching this kid how to drop in and he was on a ramp, and he was so afraid, like petrified.
That's actually pretty scary. I mean, for people who've never done
told
that,
him-
the
what I
first
told him
time you
was-
do it, you're like, yo.
the kid had to be 12 years old, but I knew he was listening to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a 12-year-old goes through the ears and he only picks out a couple things. It was like
No,
he listened
was
to
dialed
every
in.
word because
Good.
he was scared.
Yeah.
And I was the only person there genuinely caring about his existence at that time.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to him, I'm like, look, man. And I give him the same thing. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. You're going to drop down on this ramp, and you're going to fall. And it's going to hurt. But now you're going to know what that pain feels like. So the next time you do it, it won't scare you as much.
It's not going to kill you.
It's not going to kill you.
Yeah, when my parents...
And he did it,
Yeah,
and he
did it?
fell. And he
Oh.
busted up his elbow, and he was crying and running around. He's like, I hate this. I don't want to do it anymore. And his parents were mad. I was like,
Okay.
let him do it again.
Yeah.
Did it again, landed it.
Nice.
He wasn't afraid because he knew what it felt like.
Yeah.
He knew what the worst of that would be.
Wow.
And it's like sometimes you have to feel the pain.
Yeah, we have to be able to face that and push through it. And it's like, pain. It's so funny
I never thought. I now understand why they said smoking was so bad, because I know what it can do to you. And,
oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's like
It's so bad for you.
and I choose not to smoke. I choose not to suffer.
Yeah.
The pain, I still deal with the pain. But for me, it's like I'd rather feel like this every single day than ever pick up a cigarette again.
That's awesome, dude.
And for me,
It's
that's
a good
just
mentality, right?
it's fine.
Wow.
If you got to take off both my arms, take them.
Yeah.
I'd rather not smoke a cigarette because I don't ever want to deal with it again.
Wow.
But anyway,
Yeah. Hey, dude, I think this is a great breaking point. We've talked.
we somehow always make it to like 45 minutes.
Do we?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it just
Yeah.
goes so fast.
Yeah.
Well, look. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Bridgepoint's podcast. It's great to have Eli. Eli, thanks for sharing some of the things. Hopefully, this was an encouragement to you. Again, share with us what your Goliath is. Share with us what lies you're struggling with, and let's follow Jesus and keep our eyes on Him together. Till next time, we'll see you soon.